here. So welcome to everybody. Cedric, Curtis, and Martrell, and Keith. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, Roman, you're here too. Would you like to introduce yourself to Monique? Just turn your mic on or your video.
Oh, my video doesn't work. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Roman is the only kid in this class who has to put up with me for the other class that I teach. So he's particularly brave because he has to listen.
It's not that bad.
Well, welcome everyone.
Okay, so today is Tuesday, the 10th of November. Whether you can believe it or not, that really is the date. And we have a couple weeks left. And I did want, before I introduce my guest, or our guest, I'd like to just briefly go over some of my expectations for the final exam. If you'll please bear with me, Monique. I just want to show you, it's not an exam, excuse me, the final paper. So I just wanted to call your attention down here. So here we are with, I don't know if I made this title up, Monique, Journey of a Young Landscape Architect, because I think that's what we're going to mostly be talking about. And you can see some of the other folks we've got here, Bill Kearney, Jackie Patterson, Diane Jones-Allen, I think, and Douglas Williams. So these are some of the other folks that we've been able to speak with throughout the semester. And next week we're going to be talking with Sarah Zudi. So here we are with today with Monique Bassey, and I just wanted to call attention to the final paper and have you take a look at that, and so that if you have any questions about that, you can talk with me after class today, or just send me an email. However, you can call me up if you like. That's makes more sense. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that I'm giving you kind of a different way of doing the weekly papers in terms of thinking more specifically about kind of your potential career path and how the folks that we're able to speak with in this class, what you think of what they're doing and what kind of a path you'd like to take for yourself, and then a similar kind of approach for the final paper. So if you have questions about that, please see me or talk to me after class here once we finish with our interview. And with that, I'd like to turn to Monique Bassey. She is currently living in Los Angeles. What part of Los Angeles are you in?
So I'm kind of in, it's like I guess like Lakeview Terrace, Sylmar, Santa Clarita area, the valley essentially.
Okay.
San Fernando Valley, but it's more north.
Okay. And is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Burbank. So I grew up in LA, but it's Burbank. So, yeah, where essentially all the studios are. So like ABC Studios, WB, Universal Studios. So it was really nice to be like around that and surrounded by that. It's also just a really nice city, just over the hill from Hollywood, and then you have the other part of like East LA, Eagle Rock, where Dodger Stadium is, downtown LA. So it was a very central location, and having access to different things within LA. Yeah.
Are you a Dodgers fan?
Yes, just by way of being from LA. I actually never really watched much of any baseball, but my brother actually writes for the Dodgers, so he was able to write, about the World Series and everything, and go to a couple of games before right. So yeah, so his favorite sport is baseball, and then basketball, but he really enjoys sport. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's the only sport that I can get my wife to watch with me. everything else is just too, violent and all that. But she'll watch baseball, and I'll turn it on, and it's kind of a nice way to relax, except
Mm.
during the World Series, maybe. Not so
Yeah.
relaxing.
Yeah.
Well, so part of what I'm so happy about is that you're a little bit closer to the age of the students who are mostly seniors in this class. Not all of them are seniors. We have 15 people in total, and it looks like about half of them are on with us right now, and then the other half will be watching later. But I will also, if it's okay with you, I'll share your email with them so that if they have some follow-up questions after they listen to this interview, they can kind of catch up with you and maybe ask you some questions one-on-one. And that, of course, goes for the folks who are here with us today. They can, we'll make some time for them to kind of ask you some questions along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I think rather than kind of saying a whole lot about where you are right now, it would make a little more sense to just kind of start at the beginning and have you tell your story. You told us a little bit about the fact that you've kind of grown up in Burbank, but I know your dad's from a different country, and I think that's kind of part of your journey as well. So I'd love to just kind of open up the conversation by asking you to just tell us a little bit about your growing up and some of the experiences that you had growing up and kind of how that's led you into the design profession, both in architecture and landscape architecture. And just tell us a little bit about kind of your path and the journey that you've taken over the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And then, yeah, everyone feel free to just jump in and ask me questions and just talk. See, some people are joining in. I see Jasmine and others. So yeah.
Hey, good.
Yeah. So my dad was from Nigeria, born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and our family is from the Akwa Ibom state, Uyo, and so. My dad was one of 8 kids. Actually, it's actually 10. We adopted one early on, but one of 10. And so he was from a very poor family. They didn't have much of anything, and he wanted to make sure that he was always a provider of his family. At a very young age, he was one of the eldest sons, and so when you're the eldest son, you have right out of the womb, essentially, you are responsible for your family. So, yeah. So then he, as he grew up, he wanted to provide, and he felt like the only way that he could was to move and relocate to the States. So he did that at the age of 20. Barely knew much of any English, and went out and got a degree in mechanical engineering at Cal State LA, and just kind of made a living. And
Wow.
yeah, met my mom. My mom's from Alabama out here, but he was definitely on a hustle and on a grind. And his first kind of couple of jobs out of the gate was working for Disney and as a mechanical engineer, and then being able to establish his own firm. And he was able to convert. He got this great opportunity to convert an outdoor mall into an indoor mall, and he was the lead mechanical engineer for that. That gave him essentially work from, I would say, like his late 20s all the way until he passed in 2016. So he took that opportunity to open up and start his own firm. And when he had me and my brother and my sister, I was able to see him over time really develop and craft his job in his firm and go through a lot of the struggles that he went through of being an immigrant and not having a fair shot and a fair chance, and really fighting tooth and nail to get the work that he deserved. But the one true thing that I learned from him was that he was able to make really strong and honest and authentic relationships with his clients that then turned into family friends, that then turned into my mentors, and really influenced me when going to his job sites and going to see his projects, and seeing just how he worked inspired me to go out and potentially go into the field of architecture.
Can you describe a little bit some of the things that he did as a mechanical engineer? What kinds of things was he designing?
Yeah, so he was designing a lot of restaurants in LA. So he is an HVAC mechanical engineer. So essentially, like the air ducts within the buildings and within the restaurants. And so with the mall in particular, the Westfield Mall that he like designed, every store has to go through a smoke test. So when, for example, Apple converts from one store into 3 stores or takes up 2 stories, they have to do this. We have to redesign the whole duct system of how the air flows and the AC, and then in order for the store to open, you have to go through a smoke test to where you have to make sure that the smoke leaves the store in 10 minutes. It's just in case there's a fire or something. And so if it doesn't, if the test fails, then the store doesn't open. So that was my dad, like air conditioning units for buildings, air duct, also for restaurants, making sure that the exhaust left the restaurant. So yeah, he was like in control of a lot of that system, a lot of the HVAC unit systems for many buildings. Yeah.
I love that you place such an emphasis on his relationships with his clients that really became family friends. It's a very cultural kind of thing in a lot of ways, just that this is more than just making money. This is about building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like it all comes down even to the root of like family household. Like you put your family first, you get those who are closest to you first, and that really carried throughout his career. He really valued people. He valued the impact he valued the opportunity that he was given, and he also brought people along the way, because he knows that he was given a fair shot at times, not always, but given a fair shot at times, and was placed in opportunities where being an immigrant, barely knowing English, being the only Black person in the room, telling majority of the white males what to do, he had to fight to make his presence known, and so he didn't take that lightly, and so yeah, so it was really important for him.
Yeah, sounds really inspiring too, for you as his daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely motivation.
So tell us a little bit about your growing up then, in terms of like your early schooling and how you eventually ended up at Arizona. Like, how did that all happen?
Yeah, so yeah, again, it was inspired by my dad, and I was like, okay, I don't want to do engineering because engineering, my dad, once he gets in the room, he's really like, he's all about the numbers and calculations, which is what his job has to be. There was really no room for creativity, because he has to, like, his job is very matter of fact, like it has to be specific. So I usually gravitated towards, like, because I got to know a lot of his clients and they became family friends. I was able to make strong relationships with the architects, and I was looking at their drawings, and I was like, okay, yeah, I think that's what I want to do. I want to do more of the architecture aspects of the of that industry or that career. I didn't quite know what type of architecture I wanted to do, but I enjoyed seeing like built work, and I think that's because I've been seeing built work all my life. So yeah, so then I went to school. I applied to get a degree in architecture, and I think for me that really architecture school was rough. It was I was the only Black student and professor within the program. So it was CAPLA, so College of Landscape Architecture. So College of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape Architecture, CAPLA. So I was the only Black student and professor from my freshman year all the way until like the beginning of my senior year. There were some freshmen that were beginning to come into the program, and so it was really hard to relate. It was hard to uh, make friends essentially that were that understood the importance of diversity or were exposed to being around people who weren't like them, and then also connecting with my professors. It was really hard. They didn't want to really talk to me or help even take really the necessary time to really sit down and talk to me. And then I also really struggled financially. I remember I was in third year and my parents could barely afford to put me through school, and I literally almost quit because I couldn't afford it. And I don't know, by the grace of God or something, like financial FAFSA kind of pulled through that year. But I was even enrolled in courses without actually paying yet, just praying on FAFSA to like pull me through. And then it was just really, yeah, I just went through a period of just many things, of just having to work hard to get through things, feeling a bit embarrassed because I couldn't afford to make the pretty large prints or even afford the softwares needed, or the materials like the pens and the pencils, and having to ask and borrow. Even the laptop was a big stretch for my family. So it was a grind and it was a struggle. But I had met a professor my third year, that same year that I was like gonna quit, that really pulled me through and told me that, like, because I was also getting, at that time I was being told like, you should probably not be in architecture. They didn't think I was equipped for it, and I got it. I instilled in the professor that I really trusted and who saw the potential in me. And I would encourage any of you who might be struggling with the same things that I'm going through. Find a professor, find an ally, or find a mentor who can instill in you the necessary support and guidance that you need to, to successfully fulfill your passions. Because he saw in me that I was talented and that I can get through it, and I didn't see that in myself because I was being told that I wasn't good enough, and wasn't being shown the amount of respect that others were. So it's super important. And he told me, he was like, forget everybody else and just go out there and kick butt. And that was very easy for him to say, but also it fueled me because I was like, okay, I have an ally, I have someone here who's going to help me and get me through. And he was actually a landscape architecture professor. He wasn't even an architecture professor.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So my school was interdisciplinary in that I had landscape architecture professors teaching architecture studio.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was really quick. He was telling me, or like, we had the opportunity to see that our buildings weren't, like, it's not about the pretty object. It's really about the environment, how you're placing the building, like the grade and how the environment is meeting the built forms. And that really was the first like introduction to landscape architecture that I got.
Uh, you mentioned water and sun in our earlier
Mhm.
conversation as being as sort of standing out as like those two things really. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so studying in Arizona, the climate and the environment is really precious, but also very harsh. So with the western sun angles, if it's not hitting your building at the right angle, it can really destroy the western facade. And so there's a lot of shade, fins and whatnot that you have to put over uh, your windows, and also to cool your building, as well as the water. There's monsoon seasons that happen over the summer, but majority of the time during the year it doesn't quite rain in Arizona, and so you have to really provide opportunities to collect and conserve your water on site, and you don't have the opportunity to like plant a lot of vegetation that soaks up and takes up a lot of water, because that's just not how the plant palette is out in Arizona. So I was learning very quickly that there's a science to the way you build. It's not just the pretty object, but you really, in order to have a successful way of building, you have to think about the other, like outside, or not outside, the environment in order to really create a successful building. So, and we didn't quite get that in architecture school. We got that more from the landscape architecture side. So the influences were really important for us to understand in school very quickly on, and early on. And I think, yeah, regionally it's so different, right? Like other regions have water, like Portland, like it rains all the time, or Seattle, it rains all the time. But they don't have that. You need to collect water, but you need to slow it down because it's without it flooding the site. So there's just different ways of learning about your impacts with the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. It sounds like that was really a valuable thing to have that sort of interdisciplinary connection with kind of three different professions of planning, looking at kind of the big picture, long range kinds of things, which is architecture and landscape architecture.
Yeah, it was very influential, and it also it got you thinking, because it got you thinking of how far can you push your architecture to make it really impactful. And I was recognizing maybe it was just my professor who was kind of like giving us the real true I don't know, impact of success of landscape architecture, trying to make a case for it. But the real aha moment that I got from landscape architecture was that same professor, Mark Fredrickson. He has a study abroad program called the Tahito Group. And every year he has connections and relationships outside of the university in different parts of the world. And so he had a connection through a Fulbright scholarship that he took way back in the day. And he had the opportunity to take 10 students to Palestine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we studied abroad and worked in Palestine for a complete summer. So that was in 2010.
Okay.
And that was during the time, where years before that, there was a lot of scare about, Palestine and like suicide bombers and everything, and just not being a safe place. But through that experience, being out there, being exposed to the community, helping design with Rewalk, which is a nonprofit architecture firm out there who restores historic buildings for modern day use, I quickly realized that, mainstream media, social in media, like portrays a different story about, other communities, other cultures, and that it's important to immerse yourself into a culture that you're either designing for or wanting to learn more about, but then also the impact of landscape architecture was way more impactful than a building. So we were restoring a historic village called in Burzate, and providing economic opportunities, new jobs, like a job force and job training, bringing that back to the village, allowing for more community gathering, trade and commerce. And we were just realizing that like you can't do that through architecture. Like the systems of political, historical, environmental, social, economic, those systems really work through landscape architecture. The public realm, the environment, like the spaces that we occupy on a daily basis outside of buildings are really what makes a community thrive and a space thrive and become healthier, and to exist. And so that was the moment where I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to go into landscape architecture. And he recruited about 5 of us to go back and get our master's in landscape architecture at University of Arizona, and provided tuition scholarships for us. So he was our ally. He was really invested in us, and again saw potential in us and really wanted us to succeed through the passions that he saw in us, and he felt like landscape architecture might help us in that way.
Mark Frederick said Fredrickson.
Mhm.
He's still there.
He's not there anymore. He actually teaches in Turkey. He's been moving around, so now he teaches in Turkey at a university, and he actually helped establish that like architecture, urban design, and landscape architecture program out in Turkey, and yeah, and has been really making a huge impact at that university. He started about maybe 5 years ago, and is still doing
Is it
it.
in Istanbul or is it somewhere else in Turkey?
Ooh,
No?
it's somewhere else. It's not
Okay.
in Istanbul, but yeah,
It's okay.
it's a great university.
Such a valuable and powerful experience to work in this village. How big was the village?
That's a good question. Oh man, now I wish I had photos for you all.
It's okay.
It wasn't that big. It used to, the Burzate University used to be there. It used to be a booming village where many people used to live. Yes, people still live there, but it's very scattered and sparse.
Sure.
I'd say it's a smallish size. Like we walked around it several times without needing to take breaks or anything.
Well, that's such a morphing kind of landscape anyway. I mean, who knows the borders changing and all of the interaction with Zionists and others.
Yeah, it was a pretty contentious experience as well. It was beautiful, but also really eye-opening in that, there's a lot of Israeli checkpoints within Palestine, and the fact that, like they can't go from one space to another, even within their own area. Like, and if you don't have a certain license plate, you have to go another like 40 minutes around to get to where you need to be. It's really sad, and they have water tanks on top of their homes, and that the Israelis control, and they dump water into the water tanks. And then once the water is gone within your water tank, you don't get it until the next round. And so again, water is really precious in Palestine as well. They have signs that say use what you need and need what you use, in bathrooms and whatnot. And the crazy thing is that they have wells underneath their homes, but they don't have access to the wells due to Israeli limitations in that. So but they have a really strong spirit and a lot of pride in where they're from and who they are. That just is really undeniable, and that makes you want to help and make change. So,
did you feel kind of a sense of camaraderie, having had some of the experiences you've had as a Black woman in America to go there? Kind of.
I would say maybe it came after I left. I didn't quite know what I was stepping into. I think I knew that there was some hardships out there, but I did not. Again, like you only know as much as you know, and what you're willing to know. And I think for me, I didn't educate myself enough about the issues out there. Um, and just seeing through the news and only really knowing that there
Sure.
was conflicts and but after like hearing all the stories and the people that we were working with, it was a serious thing, I think, and I could definitely relate. Absolutely. I think I was talking to one of the girls we were working with, Sahar, and she was telling us about how she living in Palestine, she's not poor, or she's middle class, but she's not poor. But she went to university like out in the States as well, in New York, NYU, I believe. But she had said that she had thought of becoming a suicide bomber. And for her, she was telling us that it's because she wanted to escape um, her own feeling of being trapped. And I think that that really resonated with me, not so much of me wanting to be that person, a suicide bomber, but being being black in America is just it's it's not easy, and you do feel like you are at times going crazy a bit because there's just a lot of systemic racism that you only feel, and so the impacts are only really affecting you and not affecting others on a consistent daily basis, and not affecting your future, like affecting your future but not affecting others in the way that it's affecting you. And so I can relate to her in that sense of how she kind of felt like there was no way out other than to do something on her behalf. And again, not saying that that's what I'm thinking of doing, but I can relate to her in that of feeling trapped, and not voices not feeling heard, and not feeling valued, not feeling given a fair chance or a fair shot, and only being perceived by what you're associated with or with the color of your skin. So that to me, after leaving that, I understood where they were coming from, which you
Yeah.
don't get on the news, right? You don't see those stories.
That's interesting. It's like the door opens, you walk through, and you get this experience that changes your awareness, and then it takes some time, maybe even coming back to your own culture, to sort of integrate all that and figure out, like, okay, what did I learn from that? It's not like you necessarily like see it or understand it right away. It's like it takes time to sort of digest those experiences. And I've had kind of a similar experience, obviously not being a Black woman in America, but just in terms of being in other cultures, and then having to take several years even to try and figure out, so what was that, and what did I learn, and how do I begin to apply that to where I am here, And actually, that's my next question. So this was between your fourth and fifth year of architecture school, is that right?
Yeah.
So you finished, you came back and had your final year in architecture school. I'm curious, like how have some of those experiences played out as you finished up your architecture school and then went into landscape architecture? Like what were some of the values maybe that you took with you?
Oh, I think it really influenced me in a way where I felt I was like, why am I design is less about one individual person deciding how something should look. It really takes a community-led process in order for things to really be in order for things to really happen. And I would not have been able to come up with ideas, design ideas and solutions and propose things with my classmates had we not slowed down and actually lived the life of a Palestinian and walked their streets and were invited into their homes and had coffee and tea with them and just took in a lot of their stories and their life. And I think a lot of the times we put a Western approach onto countries or other communities that we don't know of, just because we think that the way that we do things, like a bike lane or I don't know, urban streetscape and smart cities, we think that that's the right approach to design. And so I
Now,
was
I've gone into several Black communities here in Winston-Salem to do some park design, and one of the things that I keep noticing is, like, you have a lot of tennis courts. Do you use those tennis courts? And to a person, people say, we don't know why they gave us tennis courts. It's obviously just like somebody's idea was sort of placed down in a Black neighborhood, and it's like, well, it's not that Black people don't play tennis, but it's like, where are the things that we want? It's that kind of thing, I think, is that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to ask the community what they want and what they need and how it's going to support their life before you even put pen to paper. And it because in school you're kind of taught, like, you come up with a great idea, like like you create whatever you want to create, and and at least that's how I was kind of introduced to it. But
well, there is some freedom. I mean, that is part of the experience of school, is to say, well, don't worry about money or whether it's practical, just
get
dream.
the ideas.
And that is important, but I think this more pragmatic part of the equation is equally important, obviously. Yeah, I want to just put a little plug in for you. You've shared with us your bio, kind of a 2 or 3 page introduction to sort of who you are, and I put that on the Blackboard site for the students. But also last night you sent me your portfolio, which is beautiful, and I wanted to make sure that the students saw that and that they could sort of interact with that. And what made me think of it is that when I went through the little section about some of your work, you actually put the word, something like, we need to slow down, or something like that. And that's, to me, that's a great kind of like, wait a minute, let's not get the cart before the horse. Let's find out who these people are that we're designing for, not try and lay something over the top of an existing culture.
Yeah. That project was Southtown. So after school, I went and I started working for Smith Group out in Michigan, Ann Arbor, and I was out there for 5 years. And I guess one of my last projects before I left was Southtown. It was an area-specific plan for a business district, 5 business districts in Michigan that were all predominantly Black, local-owned businesses. And back in the day, like in the 60s, it was like booming, like people were up and down the streets, like, shopping, and over time, again, because it's essentially systemic racism and just, pushing people out and not giving people loans in order to successfully continue on with their businesses, and just a lot of things tore up the districts, and now they're trying to rebuild themselves and who they are and bring back local businesses. And the design process really was a contentious one, and because I don't know if you guys know of Betsy DeVos, the
Oh gosh, yes. In Grand Rapids,
yeah,
being a part of the whole Amway empire. It's just,
yeah. So she has a family out there who was just essentially buying up land and developing and not telling the community and doing it because it was cheap and affordable. And they
it's
had
not
like
surprising in the least.
right, they had a secret plan, and this community, found out about it, put them on blast, and the distrust was just instant. Um, and so when you had a new team coming in, kind of um, like, asking them what they need, and right away they were very defensive and did not trust us. Even me being Black, I
Yeah.
wasn't even safe. I mean, they were like, "So who are you working for? Like, who are you trying to like? Are you trying to fool us here?" And
You had
so,
this one big quote that I've heard it so many times working in Black communities, like, we just want to make sure you're not like pushing out all the people that already live here. It's like, what's your motivation here? Like what's really going to happen? In that whole gentrification question, I guess.
well, yeah, I mean, they told us right up, like, we see, high rises built here and there, and we don't have access to it. There's no affordable opportunities in our community, and it really forced us and forced us as a design team to just slow down. Like, slow down. There's no need to create or propose anything right now. We need to just listen and hear what the community needs, and also be really mindful that there's a level of distrust, and so we have to take time to gain the trust back. And even if it takes a long time, we still have to slow down. There was one time where we had a community meeting, and there's several community members who kind of came in a bit late and were a bit distraught a bit, and we were beginning to start the meeting and talking about businesses and rebuilding, the streets and stuff. And they're like, you know what, like, why are we talking about this? Like, we just saw, several Black men being pulled over by the police. Like, the city needs to come and like figure out, how to turn this thing around, because there's a bigger issue of regarding law enforcement in our community. It's not just about the business district. So that, again, like, similar to, we have many families who are living in homes, we have sometimes up to 5 families living in one home. We have a lot of mental health issues within our community. We need to be figuring out solutions to that, then rebuilding our community through the business, these business districts. And so that, again, if we did not slow down, listen to what was needed, our project would have looked completely different. And so we had to pivot and go more towards an action plan of how do we make sure that the city is partnering with the right community leaders. We had to create an action plan, a step-by-step action plan of, okay, if you want, like, how do we achieve things that the community needs, and what leaders need to step up, and what is their play-by-play in order to make something happen. So it was literally like an action plan.
It's beautiful. I was looking at the strategies last night, and they're very pragmatic, practical things. Just real, almost simple in the not in a negative way, but just like, let's do some really basic things to start turning things around. and finding a new direction for our community. It's a really thoughtful piece I thought you worked on.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Have you had a chance to go back since then? That's been a while, I guess now. So
Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't gone back, but they have a Facebook page, and so they've been doing a lot of, and that's the thing of the plan. The plan was to give them the roadmap to then fulfill and succeed anything that they needed. So they're taking on the reins as community leaders and community members and residents to figure out what they need to do and how they need to connect and collaborate together. It's not like before you even put like we still haven't drawn up really anything. There needs to be a lot of capacity building and a lot of more healing within the community and with the leaders of the city before. But to answer your question, I think they have a Facebook page and they're hosting events and they're talking about things. So that's what we wanted to happen, and we're glad that that's moving forward and getting support. So yes.
I want to take a little step back and get you from through school and into your first job, and talk just a little bit about kind of your experiences getting through your master's program in landscape architecture, and then how you found your job and what that experience was like there in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, so I graduated through school. It wasn't I was more just focused on getting a degree done, in a sense where I only had 2 years because I had gone through architecture already. So instead of 3,
It
I
was a
had 2.
5-year program, right? So
Right.
it's a total of 7 years of
Yeah.
really intense, very focused kinds of professional training and discipline.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I then graduated. I'd say I started looking. I was nervous. I was nervous, intimidated. I didn't think, like again, like as a student, like not always like confident, even in the. And I think that was like kind of what I was also grappling with too. Was like, you're not like super confident with the work that you're doing in school either. I don't know. Maybe many people are, but I wasn't. I was like, okay, like I have projects, but I mean, and that's where you kind of go through that struggle of like, okay, they don't look like other people's, they don't look amazing, or they don't look spectacular like others look. But I had to stay the course, right? I had to stay like focused on and I think those two things kind of come up where it's like, where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? Like, who are you and what are your passions? And then how do you best craft your portfolio or your resume to like either complement or like put those two desires and passions together? It's the thing that I tried to do is I tried to go towards firms that I felt aligned with and that like seeked out my interest of having both architecture and landscape architecture, like more interdisciplinary firms. So I was doing that while also like freaking out about the portfolio process and the resume. But I would encourage you all to seek out people again who you trust and who will give you great feedback to constantly improve your resume and portfolio. I went through several iterations and it just got better and better and better and better. So just jump into that iterative process and know that your first shot at it is not going to be perfect. Then also, on the other hand, what I did was I was going on informational interviews, and again, that whole idea of like relationship building and learning about other people's work and what they do, and and allowing yourself to kind of come into the conversation of like, I'm also passionate and interested in that too. Like you explain that more, and having conversations about what you're interested in, and to these professionals.
So let me back up just for a second. Informational interviews. How do you set one of those up? Like, what does that even look like? Are you talking like going to the annual meeting, or like how would our students do an informational interview?
Yeah, so informational interview it can go several ways. Either say you look up a firm and you're really interested in it, but they don't have a position available. You just, what I would do is I would seek someone out in the firm and just write them an email saying, hi, I am a recent graduate, or I'm a student at NC&T, and I'm just interested in the work that you guys do. I'd like to learn more about who you are. Is there an opportunity that we can set up a call, and I can show you my work, and also ask you questions or get to know you more. And I think that's as simple as that. Or you can email someone like me who's like, and you could say, hey Monique, like I'm really interested in, I don't know, trail design. Do you know anyone who is interested in, who works in trail design? And I could say, yes, I know this person, and then I can connect you and say, hey, Roman's really interested in trail design. I think just learning more about him and getting to know him, and him allowing himself to introduce you all. Yeah, and I can make the connection so that you can then have the informational interview with them. And it's more of a low key, not really, it's not professional. Like it's professional, but it's not formal at all. It's just a way to introduce and just talk, like kind of how we are. So that the most important thing about that is it gets you a foot in the door, and you can continue to follow up with them. Like
And it's not a cold call anymore, because then if they do have an opening, it's like, hey, you kind of know me, right? We had this discussion 6 months ago or whatever. I've updated my resume, I've updated my portfolio. I'd love to talk with you a little bit more about that. And that person already kind of knows that you have an interest in X, whatever that is.
Right. Yeah. And the best thing is about that is if they're seeking you out, that they want you. It's not so much that you were one of 10 candidates or so. Maybe you were, but again, that they want you because they know of you, and that you want to work with them because you've gotten to know them more, and you're able to say, oh yeah, they're pretty cool. Like I want to continue to keep in touch, and and if you have been, or on the flip side, you can use them, or not use them, but they can turn into mentors, right? They can turn into people that you can lean on for support.
Yeah, cool. So how did you end up landing this job with the Smith Group, which I guess used to be JJR? Is that right?
Yeah,
Back when I was in school, it was JJR.
JJR out of Michigan.
Years ago.
Yeah, I I actually applied, actually not having any connections. I applied, and then they got back to me, wanting to do a kind of like a informal interview, essentially. They were looking, but they weren't like, they wanted to scope people out first, or just kind of see who they were, get to know them. And then I got got flown out there for like an interview, to see, for me to see the town, the city, and then also meet people, take a look at the office, and then after that they asked me if I wanted to join the firm. But prior to that, I had other informational interviews. I think interviews as well. And again, the importance of the informational interview also, or interviews, is so that you gain more confidence in yourself to talk to professionals, because it's always very like intimidating in the beginning, because you think you have to say the right thing, you think you have to like project yourself as someone who knows everything, and the reality is they're not looking for people who are know-it-alls or like know everything. They're just looking for people who want to be there, who are the right fit for them, but also who are willing to learn and grow within their culture. So you don't have to know it all.
Yeah. You don't need to try and pretend that you're something that you're not. I think that's part of it, right, you know?
Right, yeah. And many people don't tell you that, but and sometimes you just have to learn the hard way. And it's also the people that you meet too, right? Like people can just like let those walls down as professionals as well, and just because it can just like kind of meet you where you are, and not ask so much or expect so much out of you, but can just be real with you and kind of meet you where you are, yeah. And yeah, it's so much easier. You can just be yourself in that respect too.
So you went from being in Arizona where there were not very many black folks. I don't know what the case was in Ann Arbor, but I assume there may have been a few more black people just because you were closer to Detroit and Ypsilanti and so forth. But what was your experience like for those 5 years you were at the Smith Group?
So Ann Arbor, I lived in Ann Arbor, and Ann Arbor, it's not as diverse as you think. It's mainly diverse because of the university. So that's where U of M, University of Michigan is. But the university wasn't there. Even with the university there, there's not a lot of black people. And so, yeah, that was a bit of a culture shock in a sense where again, you just want, when you go for a really long time without like kind of just having a conversation without having to explain yourself, it kind of, you feel lonely a bit and you just don't feel as connected as you could. But I think, the most important thing is to like seek out that community as best as you can. I think, I feel like it's going to be a struggle almost anywhere you go at times. But I think I really saw the contrast when I moved out to the Bay Area and living out in San Francisco and Berkeley and Oakland. Like, my goodness, like it's you feel like at home when you're in Oakland. It's a good feeling to be around other Black people and just going to Black-owned businesses and just events where you're the majority. And that's also where the Black Panther movement was out there and started, and so that legacy and that pride is still very strong out there. And you can just feel the electricity and the energy out there, which was really good, especially it instills in you again a lot of confidence in who you are. I know that's kind of odd to say, but just your environment, and constantly being told that you are important through the people who make up that environment it's important to have, really important.
So you told me some stories. I don't know how much you want to get into this, but it seemed like there was kind of a point at which you said, okay, 5 years is enough here in Ann Arbor, and you made some decisions to go to a different office out. Was it in San Francisco or Berkeley? I can't remember now.
San Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah. But that didn't seem to work out so well. I wonder if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about kind of what that experience was and how you moved from that to MIG.
Yeah.
In particular, you talked about the importance of leadership within an office,
Right.
And how that sort of kind of helps to set the culture. And that's really kind of the issue I'd like to get at, was kind of like some of the leadership and mentoring that maybe went on in Ann Arbor and what that looked like in San Francisco, or didn't look like in San Francisco, just because I think it's important, as folks are getting ready to graduate and think about going to graduate school or trying to work for a few years, it's nice to hear some stories about, like, well, here's been some of my experiences. So however much you want to share that you feel comfortable with, I think it might be a valuable part of the discussion of your journey.
Yeah. I think, again, these aren't stories that often get told until after you've experienced them, and then you are able to talk with other people who've experienced it as well. But workplace culture, corporate America, being Black, being a Black woman, it is a grind. It's hard. It's not easy at all. You're constantly faced with not feeling capable of being successful. You're constantly told that you're not valued. And my leadership in Ann Arbor was completely different than San Francisco. I was supported. I was given the space to grow. But when I moved to San Francisco, I was ignored by my boss. He was putting others there. He was. It's I don't know why it's actually hard for me to say it, but I think the biggest thing is that the reality is that we're gonna, as young Black designers, and throughout your career, you're gonna go through a struggle of people not giving you opportunity, period, and giving others opportunity before you, even though you're working your tail off, even though you're proving that you can do it and that you're capable. And it messes with you mentally, because again, you don't have leaders who look like you, who think like you, in spaces who are at the table and who can advocate for you. And when you're doing it by yourself, and when you're young, it's tiring, it's discouraging, and you tend to want to give up or give in and believe believe what they say about you. So I experienced some discrimination where and I don't mean to like bring it down to like a really dark point, but I wasn't being given the opportunity. I was essentially kicked out of the firm. I was told that I either had to stay and they were going to reevaluate my role, or that I had to leave. And I think that that was hard, because I had spent about 5 months going to HR, going to other leaders, talking about my experiences, and they weren't listening. And they realized that, hey, like we either have to kick her out, or or if she stays, we're going to have to kind of control the situation on our terms. But they weren't looking at the root problem, which was the person who was doing these things towards me. And so I'm just, these firms, sometimes they just don't have the guts to do the right thing, just because they need to save their reputation. That's essentially it. They have to save their reputation. And I had to stand up for myself it was scary, like scary, to tell the director of the office essentially that they're wrong. And uh, I won't go into full detail, but I think me moving on was the best thing that I was able to do, because I took control back of my my sanity. I was really sick. I was mentally not there. I was a bit depressed. And I had to begin to take care of myself first, the foundation of who I am first, and not allow a firm to dictate who I am as a person. And so I had to step back. So I decided to leave. They gave me 2 weeks to make this decision. Again, living in the Bay Area, it's super expensive. They didn't think about my economics, situation. So I had to find a job real quick. And I started working at Anthropology. It was right like a couple of weeks before Black Friday, so they were looking for people to hire. And I was literally on a grind, like Monday through Friday. Oof, like it brings me it gets me emotions, but yeah, Monday through Friday, even Saturday, just like grinding, like open till close. Just working my tail off because I had to afford to live in the Bay Area. But also removing myself from that toxic situation allowed me to regain my strength back and who I am. And it took a lot out of me too, because I was like, okay, I have to leave my profession. I don't know if like how soon I'm going to get a job, like a job in the career and the profession. And so I just had to focus on like getting my health back, and that space away from the profession really allowed me to find joy in myself and find joy within my life. And uh, yeah, so I've met some amazing people while working at Anthropology who really taught me a lot, just about how to run a store and everything. And then while I was still working there, I was like grinding and going on interviews, like, making connections, how I was telling you all before, and also telling my story. And they're like, wow, you're really talented, like, this is not how it should have ended up for you. And so, yeah, I was able to apply and applied at MIG and other places, but MIG really, their focus is about human-centered design and being really intentional with how they build for communities, and they have a strong community engagement process and team. And so I felt like that was a really strong suit and fit for me.
Well, last night
Yeah.
I went on the MIG website and started reading kind of their approach to everything, and I thought, this is like the perfect place for money. And it looked like it was started by a bunch of hippies, like in the 60s, It's like, we're not going to do this just for the money. We want to do this for the good of humanity. It's like, what? That's so great.
Yeah, it was started by 3 Berkeley students back in the 80s or 70s or 80s.
Yeah. I mean, their hairdos and everything, so they have some old pictures, and it's like, that's quite a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I think, and then while being at MIG, I think it's really taught me, like, again, like, that's why it's so important to just remove the noise. Like, you don't have to work at this flashy, like, if that's the passion that you want to go into, then yes. But if you have a higher calling, if you want to have a greater impact, go in those spaces that will provide those opportunities for you to create that impact. Because MIG, they do fantastic work, but a lot of the work that they do is for equity-driven solutions, and so and that usually doesn't afford a lot of money. Right now, I'm working on this project at Verdes Carter Park, in East Oakland, deep East Oakland, where the park is it's a Black neighborhood, and it was owned originally by the city of Oakland. Then, but it was in a pretty much a gang-affiliated area. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that it was a strong, tight-knit community where just gang activity happened. So that wasn't the community, but it happened, and so for many years, and it got transferred over to the Oakland Unified School District. The park did, and then these like 5 police officers Black police officers decided to take over the park and create a police authorities league, where they mentor and support youth
That's so cool.
after school program, and they teach anti-bullying courses in the morning, and then the kids come from like 1:30 to 5, and they do the whole like snacks and playing in the park. They have a clubhouse, and then they do the after school kind of activities like basketball tournaments and track tournaments and or track meets. And so they take care of the youth, and it's been going on for 20 years. So now the kids who've graduated and gone off to college and now are having kids are putting their kids through the whole PAL program. And, you know, kids who are off in college are coming back and
I'm getting goosebumps just hearing
supporting.
the story. It's so great.
Yeah. And so
I
we're
used to live on
going.
San Pablo Avenue in Oakland back in the
Oh,
70s. Yeah.
Cool. And it's like this park is off of Bancroft and 96th and
Okay.
98, right
Yeah,
by the Oakland Zoo. I don't know if you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
It's down by the Oakland Zoo. And yeah, so they were going after an $8.5 million grant with Trust for Public Land. So in California, they have a Prop 68 where they've allocated, I forgot how much money, like $3 billion.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's a great thing.
Yeah, to open spaces in areas that need parks, like equity. They call it equity zones, essentially.
Yeah.
So, so the Trust for Public Land, MIG, we're partnering with community leaders to go after this grant. So the grant was originally due in December, but they pushed it out for the next, for 3 more months, so they'll be due in February, I think. But we've already gone through, sorry?
Because of COVID?
Because of COVID, yeah. So like it was supposed to be done in March and it got pushed back even further, and then into December, and then so then it got pushed back another 3 months. But it's a highly competitive, it's like the entire state of California. So it's really competitive. We've done 2 engagements so far with the community. And yeah, again, this is why I do what I do. Again, it's just I want to be involved in amplifying communities' voices and getting them the necessary resources that they need so that they can do life properly and successfully. The park is run down, so they need a new facility in order to successfully do the stuff that they're already doing. That's amazing. It's when you find your purpose and when you find like the areas that make you happy. It's not always going to be easy, but
Obviously.
but it's the moments that are worth it are moments like these. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So COVID, I guess you're kind of waiting for that to sort of get past that so that you can probably move back to Oakland.
Mhm.
Yeah, or Berkeley.
Yeah. Yep.
We've hit 2:15, And this has been like such a wonderful journey with you. I'd like to just invite you to um, share anything else with our students that you think would be particularly helpful as they think about finishing up their undergraduate in landscape architecture, and what might be about some valuable next steps or things that they could kind of take with them. You've already shared so much beautiful wisdom in terms of really wanting to, to find your passion and follow that and be true to yourself. What else would you like to say to us?
I think now more than ever, our voices matter. As Black designers, potential advocates, our roles are so much greater than drawings, and I'd encourage you all to think and dream big. I mean, don't just think about what it is that you want to do now or in the next year. Think about where you want to be in 10 years, what communities you want to influence, what goals and dreams you want to provide and be a part of. And I know that's really big and lofty, but I am noticing that a lot of my goals and what I've been doing over the last 5 to 6 years are coming into fruition. And so I just encourage you all to know that it's going to be it's going to be hard, but I also think that it's stay focused on I don't know, stay focused on what matters the most. Surround yourself. I know it's not like create your portfolio and do this and do that. I would encourage you, if you are interested in I don't know, working in Oakland or whatever, research nonprofits and organizations, and tap into those leaders as well, and call them up and ask them what they do. It's not just about like also informational interviews with like firms, but it's with other organizations, and knowing that your ideas and what you want to influence matters, and it's not going to look traditional at all. If you, yeah, I don't know if that really made sense, but seek out mentors and people who you can continue to have dialogue and conversation about what you're passionate about and what you want to do. Call me up, call others that you've heard over the past couple of months. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I just
That's beautiful. Why don't we open up the floor and just see? I also have one question for you about the Black Network of Landscape Architects and Designers. Are you connected into that at all?
I am connected into it, yeah. As a member, it originally started off with like several of people like Diane Jones-Allen that you've met, Glenn, Kofi, and others who were meeting up at ASLA conferences and having lunch together. And then over time, they've developed it into a more robust organization that really supports Black students and young professionals, and that has been now developed into a nonprofit right now. And yeah, they've been a great resource for me. I met them through ASLA conferences and had lunch with the group, and it's just gotten bigger. So yeah, I'd highly recommend. I can connect you all to. I mean, I'm sure you guys have met Diane Jones Allen, but and connect you to Glenn and others of the organization to get you connected.
Great. Do you feel hopeful, like after the election, and just kind of thinking over the next 10 years, like that there's some movement afoot in our society?
I feel I've been going through a lot of different emotions. I feel hopeful, but there's just half of the country that just still doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Still doesn't get it, and I think that's very scary. And I
Yeah,
think
I'm hoping
it's
for
less about.
some big avalanche of, a lot more folks going, yeah, okay, you're right. We gotta look at this. But,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. It's less about parties, right? And it's more about, being a good person. And our current administration and leader has shown that he does not care
Yeah.
about people. And so when you
Well,
continue to support and enable that worries me and kind of scares me. And so I don't know, maybe there's many people who are just getting fed fake news, but I think there's a lot of others who are just not willing to let go and realize that we have to take care of one another, and it's not just it's not all about the taxes and the money. It seems like it just sounds like, and it hears like that's what they're holding on to, his supporters. But
Yeah.
it's about changing the American narrative and really being true to everyone's success.
Yes. Would any of you students like to ask Monique anything or say anything before we sign off?
Not sure if you talked about it, but do you have like any advice on how to go about finding a firm like that we want to work at? What should we look for based on who works there and I guess how they treat you, I guess?
That's a really good question. My advice would be to first several things. I think figure out where you wanna live. If that makes sense. Like the cities and the communities that you want to live first. The firm, their values. Look at what they're working on. There have been some firms actually who have been working on youth detention centers, and many people don't know of it. While they put their pretty, projects in the forefront, but they're also not really working on jails and whatnot. So look and understand what they're fully working on. Look at their mission statement and their core values. Look at and ask about about their diversity statement if they have one. I know many firms are now scrambling to create one and a stance on what they believe in that. But ask them. I mean, I would ask them, like, what is your approach to 2020 with the racial injustice that's been going on right now? Like, what are you guys doing right now? At MIG, we've been having discussions since May about anti-racism and privilege and white fragility with our small groups and then going from a large to our larger firm. And we've been having working sessions. We had several a couple of weeks ago. We're having another big firm-wide one on Friday. Does your firm have an action plan on how they're going to execute a lot of the things that they're saying in their statement? So I think that's also the power of the informational interview, is to really ask those questions, because you'll never know by their website, but you'll know by conversation and asking them. And yeah, that's really the only way you're gonna know. And also take a look at, like, if there are any people of color or Black and brown people at their firm, hit them up and ask them, hey, like, what's really going down? You know, like, what's really happening? And how are you treated? Because I think that's also valid and important as well in the process. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Sorry.
That does. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else?
I wish I can see you guys.
Yeah, good luck with that. I've been trying to, has something to do with being on Zoom so much that it's like I just can't deal with it. So that's okay.
Yeah.
Monique, you're such a magnificent woman. You're so bright and so courageous, and you have such a big heart, and just been such a treat for us to be with you today. And thank you so much for sharing so deeply and so meaningfully about your life and your journey. And we're really grateful that you're willing to do this with us the way that you
Yeah.
do.
Absolutely. And please, everyone, email me. Happy to go on a Zoom call with you guys or call you up and just continue to help throughout your careers, your college career, and then after, if you're looking for work or if you're interested in the firm, I can connect you to people that I might know, or if you're looking to do something completely different and need some advice or need people to talk to. There's a large group of us out here who's more than willing to give you some advice and connect you. So yeah, please don't be shy. Don't be shy or intimidated. I hope I'm not, and I don't come across as being intimidating, but like, yeah, really, I'm here for you guys. I've been in your positions before, and yeah, still growing as well. So yeah, whatever you need, I'll do my best to help out.
Thank you so much, Monique.
Yeah.
And I hope that everybody will take that to heart and write down her information on how to get hold of her. You put that in your resume, right?
Yes, but I'm trying to figure out how to type in this chat. I'll just type. You guys getting it? 0 results?
Hold on, yeah, I'm just looking. I'm just using the little bubbly thing. There's something that if you go to the purple thing and then hit the bubble, the far left thing, it says say something.
Find someone to chat, or everyone?
No, there's a little
Oh, down there.
space there. You can type in where it says say something. You can type in, like, if you want to give us your email or phone number or whatever. There it is.
Got it.
Bassey.mo at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's my number.
Fantastic. Monique, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for your time and all your insights. You're really a treasure, and we really appreciate your contribution to our program in this way.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, good luck to everyone this last semester. Have a great rest of your year, holiday season, and yeah, great
We
work.
look forward to staying in touch with you and following your career and hopefully continuing to make this connection with our program. It's been real valuable for us, so thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah,
All
take
right.
care. Okay, bye.
All right.
Bye. See ya.